The rain came down in sheets, a relentless gray curtain that blurred the edges of the world. Ellie Harper gripped the steering wheel of her beat-up Honda Civic, the wipers slapping frantically against the windshield. It was late, too late for anyone sensible to be out on a backroad like this. But Ellie wasn't sensible, not tonight. She'd just finished a double shift at the diner, her feet aching and her apron still faintly smelling of grease and coffee. All she wanted was to get home, peel off her damp clothes, and collapse into bed. That's when she saw him. A figure stood hunched by the side of the road, barely visible through the downpour. A sleek black car was pulled over, its hazard lights pulsing weakly against the darkness. The man was wrestling with a jack, his soaked shirt clinging to his frame as he cursed under his breath. Ellie slowed down, her headlights catching the glint of water streaming off his face. She hesitated. Every true crime podcast she'd ever listened to screamed at her to keep driving. But then she saw the way his hands shook, cold, frustrated, human, and something in her softened. She pulled over, gravel crunching under her tires, and rolled down her window just enough to shout, "You need help?" The man looked up, startled. He was older than she'd expected, maybe in his 50s, with salt and pepper hair plastered to his forehead. His face was lined but handsome in a rugged, weathered way. He squinted at her through the rain. "I've got a flat," he called back, voice rough. "And this damn jack's useless." Ellie sighed. She could drive off, leave him to figure it out. But the diner's unspoken rule, help where you can, had wormed its way into her bones over the years. She grabbed her umbrella from the passenger seat, popped it open, and stepped out into the storm. "Hold this," she said, shoving the umbrella at him as she knelt by the tire. The man fumbled to take it, clearly surprised, but he held it over her as she inspected the damage. The tire was shredded, a jagged gash from some unseen road hazard. Her hands moved quickly, muscle memory kicking in from years of fixing her own clunker. She retrieved her own jack from the trunk, a sturdy, no-nonsense thing, and got to work. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice softer now, almost lost in the rain. "Yeah, well, I'm already wet," she replied, grunting as she loosened the lug nuts. "Besides, you look like you're about to keel over." He chuckled, a low, warm sound that caught her off guard. "Fair enough." 10 minutes later, the spare was on, and Ellie straightened up, wiping her muddy hands on her jeans. The man handed her back the umbrella, his eyes lingering on her for a moment. "You're a lifesaver," he said. "What's your name?" "Ellie," she said, brushing wet hair out of her face. "You." "James," he replied simply. "Thank you, Ellie." "Really?" She waved it off. "Just don't make a habit of it. Drive safe." And with that, she climbed back into her car, cranked the heat, and left him standing there in the rain. She didn't think about him again, or at least, she tried not to. Life had a way of swallowing up small moments like that. Ellie's days blurred into one another, a monochrome reel of diner shifts, bills, and the occasional night out with her friend Tara at the only bar in town that didn't smell like regret. She lived in a cramped apartment above a laundromat, the hum of dryers her constant lullaby. At 28, she felt older than she should, worn thin by a childhood of scraping by and a mother who'd loved her but hadn't known how to show it. Ellie didn't dream big anymore. She just survived. 2 weeks after the rainy night, Tara burst into the diner during Ellie's lunch break, her eyes wide with gossip. "You hear about that guy who bought the old Grayson estate?" Ellie barely looked up from her sandwich. "Nope. Don't care." "You should," Tara said, sliding into the booth across from her. "Word is, he's some rich dude from the city. Like, loaded. People saw a Bentley parked out front yesterday." "Good for him," Ellie muttered, taking a bite. Maybe he'll tip better than the truckers. Tara rolled her eyes. You're no fun. What if he's, like, a secret billionaire looking for a small-town girl to sweep off her feet? Then he's barking up the wrong tree, Ellie said, smirking. I'd rather sweep the floor than some guy's ego. Tara laughed, but the conversation stuck with Ellie longer than she'd admit. The Grayson estate had been empty for years, a crumbling relic of a bygone era. Whoever bought it had money to burn, and probably a few screws loose. It was a slow Tuesday when he walked into the diner. Ellie was wiping down the counter, her back to the door, when the bell jingled. She turned, ready with her standard "seat yourself," but the words caught in her throat. There he was, James, looking nothing like the drenched mess she'd met on the road. His hair was dry and neatly combed, his soaked shirt replaced by a crisp button-down and a tailored coat that screamed money. He caught her eye and smiled, a flicker of recognition passing between them. He slid into a booth by the window, and Ellie grabbed a menu, her heart doing an odd little flip. Didn't expect to see you again, she said, setting the menu down. Didn't expect to be back, he replied, his voice still carrying that rough warmth. But here I am. She nodded, unsure what to say. Coffee? Black, he said. And whatever you recommend. She scribbled down an order for the diner's best burger and fries, then busied herself behind the counter, stealing glances at him. He didn't belong here, not with that coat, not with the quiet confidence he carried. When she brought his food, he looked up at her. You're good at this, he said. It's a burger, not rocket science, she shot back, but there was a grin tugging at her lips. Not the food, he said. The helping people part. She shrugged, brushing it off, but his words lingered. He ate slowly, leaving a generous tip, $50 on a $12 tab, and when he left, he gave her a nod that felt like a promise. James started showing up regularly after that. Always the same booth, always black coffee and a burger, always that tip that made Ellie's eyes widen. She didn't ask questions, not at first. But the town did. Whispers followed him, he's the one who bought the Grayson place. He's got a private jet. He's hiding from something. Ellie heard it all but kept her distance. Curiosity was a luxury she couldn't afford. One night, though, he stayed late. The diner was empty, the rain tapping against the windows again, and Ellie was mopping the floor when he spoke. You ever wonder why I keep coming back? She paused, leaning on the mop. Figured you liked the food. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. It's not the food. It's you. Her stomach flipped, but she played it cool. That's a line if I ever heard one. It's not, he said, and there was something raw in his voice that made her stop. That night on the road, you didn't have to stop. Most people wouldn't have. But you did. She shifted uncomfortably. It was just a tire. It was more than that, he said. You didn't know me. You didn't ask for anything. You just helped. Ellie didn't know what to say. She wasn't used to being seen, not like this. Well, she finally managed, you're welcome, I guess. He leaned back, studying her. What do you want, Ellie? Out of life, I mean. The question hit her like a punch. She laughed, sharp and bitter. What do I want? A winning lottery ticket. A day off. Pick one. I'm serious, he said. So am I, she replied, but his gaze didn't waver, and she felt the weight of it. I don't know, okay? I don't think about it. I just keep going. He nodded, like he understood more than she'd said. Fair enough. A week later, James left a note with his tip, a simple card with an address and the words, dinner. Saturday. 7 p.m. Ellie stared at it, torn between tossing it and tucking it into her pocket. Tara, predictably, lost her mind when Ellie showed her. "You're going," Tara declared. End of story. "It's weird," Ellie protested. "He's some rich guy I barely know." "Exactly. He's mysterious and hot and clearly into you. What's the worst that could happen?" Ellie could think of plenty, but curiosity, and maybe something else, won out. Saturday found her standing on the porch of the Grayson estate, feeling wildly out of place in her best jeans and a borrowed sweater from Tara. The house was stunning, all restored wood and glowing windows, nothing like the ruin it had been. James answered the door himself, casual in a sweater and slacks. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely surprised. "Against my better judgment," she replied, stepping inside. Dinner was simple but perfect: steak, roasted vegetables, a bottle of wine she couldn't pronounce. They talked, really talked, for the first time. He asked about her life, her dreams she'd buried, and she found herself answering. She asked about him, too, and he gave her pieces: a tech empire sold for millions, a life of isolation after, a search for something real. He didn't flaunt his wealth, but it was there, woven into every word. "Why me?" she asked finally, the question that had been burning since the diner. "Because you're real," he said. "No pretense, no agenda. I've spent years surrounded by people who want something from me. You didn't even know who I was." She didn't know how to respond, so she didn't. But when she left that night, he pressed a small box into her hand. Inside was a key, a car key. "What the hell is this?" she asked, holding it up. "For your Honda," he said. "It's falling apart. I had it fixed. And upgraded a little." She stared at him, stunned. "I can't take this." "You can," he said. "You saved me that night. Let me return the favor." The car was parked outside her apartment the next morning, a sleek, practical SUV that still smelled of new leather. Ellie wanted to hate it, to reject it, but she couldn't. It was freedom, a crack in the wall she'd built around herself. And James kept showing up, not just at the diner, but in her life. He'd bring coffee, help her carry groceries, sit with her on her tiny balcony and talk about nothing and everything. She fought it at first, scared of what it meant. But he was patient, steady, and slowly, she let him in. They weren't a couple, not officially, but they were something. Something good. Then came the night that changed everything. It was late, the diner empty again, when a man walked in. He was slick, polished, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He asked for James by name, and Ellie's gut twisted. "He's not here," she said. "Tell him Victor's looking for him," the man said, sliding a card across the counter. "He'll want to know." When James showed up the next day, Ellie handed him the card. His face darkened, a storm brewing in his eyes. "Stay away from him," he warned her. "He's trouble." "Who is he?" she asked. "Someone from my past," James said, and that was all he'd give her. Victor came back a week later, this time with 2 men in suits. They cornered Ellie outside the diner, the air thick with menace. "Where's James?" Victor demanded. "I don't know," she said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her chest. Victor smirked. "You're lying. And that's a shame. He owes me, big. And I always collect." They left her shaken but unharmed, and she called James immediately. He arrived within the hour, his jaw tight. "I'm sorry," he said. "I never meant to drag you into this." "Into what?" she snapped. "Who are you, really?" He took a deep breath, and the story spilled out: a fortune built on tech, a shady deal gone wrong, a debt Victor claimed James owed, millions he'd never paid. James had fled to this nowhere town to escape, but Victor had found him. "I'll handle it," he promised. "But you need to stay out of it." "No," she said, fierce. "You don't get to decide that. I'm in this now." They faced Victor together. James arranged a meeting at the estate, Ellie by his side despite his protests. Victor arrived with his goons, all smug confidence, but James had a plan. He'd recorded everything, years of threats, proof of Victor's extortion, and he'd sent it to the feds. As Victor ranted, sirens wailed in the distance. "You're done," James said, calm as the storm broke. Victor lunged, but Ellie was faster, shoving a chair into his path. He stumbled, and the police swarmed in. It was over in minutes. Later, as they stood on the porch watching the last cruiser pull away, James turned to her. "You didn't have to do that." "Yeah, I did," she said, meeting his gaze. "You're not the only one who gets to play hero." He laughed, pulling her close. "What do you want, Ellie?" "Really?" She thought about it, the weight of the question lighter now. "This," she said. "You. A life that's mine." He kissed her then, and for the first time, she let herself believe in something bigger than survival. Months later, the diner buzzed with regulars, but Ellie wasn't behind the counter. She and James had opened a garage together, her fixing cars, him funding it, both of them building something real. The rain still fell sometimes, but now it felt like a beginning, not an end. And every so often, when someone broke down on that lonely back road, Ellie would grab her jack and her umbrella, a quiet smile on her face. Some debts, she knew, were worth repaying.